So I received a message from somebody asking us a question, so maybe we can have a discussion about this. In the last 18 months, 2 people have lost people close to them, have said, one in a dream and one in a message through me, that their loved one told them that they died so another could live. Now, in the literal sense, I've been pondering, why would one need to die in order to allow another soul into our human world? I noticed, though, that the people closest to the 2 deceased may be the ones who needed to live. In both cases, though grief-stricken, I have also seen amazing growth and change in these people. It's almost like their dependence on departed ones preventing them from learning the lessons and engaging in the things they needed in this life. So if you hear of this, how should we interpret that?
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty...
I feel like it's soul contract, right? They made a contract and agreement before they came here, and that's fulfilling the deal. You can only go so far with one person, and then you need to be on your own and explore and grow.
So is that the soul contract of the person who's left and the person who's gone?
I would think
Or
so.
was there a contract between those 2 people?
I think between those 2 people, who it affected the most. That's my
Well, because grief is an interesting process, right? So it can help lift you up or it can pull you down. So
mm-hmm.
it's a big lesson, it's a big step to take. So it might, like she said, she saw them living more, and sometimes that happens. Yeah.
And I would agree with that, because my father passing, and I was young, I was 16 when he passed, and yet it was the greatest gift that I could have ever received from him, because now I've got that connection with him, and I actually wouldn't be on this journey of where I am now if it hadn't been for him passing. So technically he had to die in order for me to be able to start living in the way that I'm living now, and to be authentic in it, and to understand that grief process. And I know in talking to a lot of spirits and giving messages from them, one of their big things they always say to people is they don't want you to stop living just because they've passed. They don't want you to just be done with life. They want you to experience life so much more and to find joy in life, because that's why we're still here, right? They've already had their chance to express themselves as fully as possible, and sometimes they're successful and sometimes they're not. But the whole point of us actually being on earth is to just live it.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that the person who passes, what they've brought to that person's life was all that was intended at that point? Or was it necessary for that interaction so that additional growth could happen after the passing? Does it make sense what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah. I like the second part.
So,
Sorry.
It's so early in the morning. I'm like, these are really deep questions.
it's a very deep question. I think what I'm trying to say is, it's like, okay, so say there's 2 friends, and they begin this path together, and they're supporting each other and learning, but one becomes more dependent on the other in order to go forward, and then the friend who's the dependent on passes. Now this person has no choice but to be more dependent. Independent, sorry, you're right, yes. And so was the purpose of the friend to demonstrate how independence looks to the person who is more dependent, so that when they left this realm, the other person could then assimilate easier? So is that part of the lesson?
I think it's a potential,
Mm-hmm.
because I think when we lay these things out, I always think of it as like, you know, the choose your own journey books,
Yeah.
where you go to the page and then you make a choice, and then you go to the next page depending on that choice. I think we lay out so many different avenues, and when they made that choice to create that dependence or to create that codependency in the relationship, then they set off a series of events that creates that lesson. If they had have, say, grown differently, then maybe it would have gone differently, but there is a purpose behind it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there's always a choice after as well, right? So I mean, that's the whole thing. She could have just shriveled up and not done anything and went the poor me road.
Yep.
But the whole thing of going and making that choice.
Now, what if the person who passed was an abuser,
That could apply for failed marriages too, though.
right?
Mhm.
But what if that person was very controlling and limited the ability of this person with their passing?
I think it depends on the person left behind. Their personality, their character, their life up to that point, and how far they're willing to go and risk.
Yeah.
Having
And
a
I mean,
jump.
there's a lot of, in the LGBTQ community, sometimes with gay men, they'll actually come out of the closet after their father passes,
Right.
right? And so their father passing is actually a gift to them that they can start to live more authentically
That's true.
in who they are.
Mhm.
So,
So, yes, so if your life, if the way you've been living your life has been limited by a person, then certainly their passing is necessary for you to live fuller. That really makes sense.
Mhm.
I wonder how many times though you think you're living a full life with somebody and then they go and then you now have to face a new reality.
I get why you're laughing because sometimes you're in a relationship, whether that's friendship or a loving relationship, and you think it's as good as it's going to get. Like it's like this is great, and then you split up for whatever reason, or the friendship ends for whatever reason, and then you go, damn, I feel so much lighter now, or I feel so much freer now without this relationship being intertwined anymore. So it's
And I just had a thought, it's about, did that person need to die in order for someone to live? I don't think that they needed to die. I think the relationship needed to end. Is what I would tend to say, and sometimes the passing is the only way for that relationship to end.
I think it's complex, right? Because you have to
Yes.
factor in the contracts, the decisions that they make, the choices every day, karmic
Mhm.
laws as well. So
And just personal choice.
I think
Right.
each person in each case is going to be very individual.
Mhm.
And I guess it would then also change all your remaining relationships too, right? So now we get into a really big,
because it goes butterfly effect, right?
Right.
And we might think it only affects, say, you and I, but it affects them because they're in our energy right now. Then it affects everybody that's connected to them as well, based on
right? And everybody that's connected to us outside of this realm
Yeah.
as well. It's a big topic.
Mhm.
I think that anytime there's a passing, there's an influence on the lives of the people left. Whether or not somebody could grow or bloom or live life fuller because of the passing of someone, I think that's because we've allowed somebody to control our energy and our destiny. And it's about, can we make the decision before to change that? And I don't know that everybody understands that they could.
yeah, that's only in like extreme cases of abuse or like where there's more power in a relationship or not, right? Because I mean, my relationship with my father was a typical relationship
Right.
with a father. Like it was what it was. And he wasn't abusive or controlling in any way.
And
And
I-
yet,
yeah.
still in him passing, it helped me to go open up to all of these different realms that were available and how spirit can actually connect with you.
Absolutely.
And so it's, for a lot of people, I think it's knowing that there's something more or starting to understand that there's something more than this physical existence that allows them to start embracing more of what this is all about.
Yes, I totally agree. And it's not necessarily just about abusive, but I think that we can limit ourselves in our abilities, whether or not we're in a relationship that might be unbalanced or not. Some people can only deal with having one friend at a time. And they feel like they need to only deal with one friend at a time. And then if that friend is gone, they'll move on to one more.
Yeah.
But really, we have the choice to have multiple friends and have multiple relationships. And I think that it doesn't have to necessarily be, you know, an empowerment thing. If that makes sense. But I want to say, like, even though you say that your father wasn't controlling, he had influence on you,
Oh, absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So there is an influence, because same thing with when my father passed, certainly was a trigger point for me to go deeper into this.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that. So.